Welcome to Smart Water Wednesdays. I'm your host, Ben Coffey, and I have with me Tom Mathies, who is with Shooter and Lindsey, which is a landscape and irrigation contracting firm out of Texas. Let me stop sharing. Tom, good morning. How are you?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Can you tell us a little bit about Shooter and Lindsey?
Shooter and Lindsey is a landscape construction firm that's been working in the Houston area since the 80s. Mainly commercial work. Do a lot of good work out in the Houston area. It's always fun and something different.
There you go. That's awesome. So a big commercial landscape firm, and you do their water management for them?
That's correct.
Perfect. So what we are going to talk about today, as you may have seen on my slide that I'm going to bounce back to, boom. We are scheduled to talk about OptiFlow today. Again, Tom and I talked before the show, and we talked about what his kind of WeatherTRAK experience was and what his best WeatherTRAK stories are. And we kept coming across the OptiFlow product. I know we just had an episode a couple weeks back on a different perspective. This OptiFlow is going to be unique. What I really like about the conversation that we are set to have today with Tom is that OptiFlow is our highest grade product, and it is our elite management system. And as such, it often sounds intimidating. It often sounds like a huge system that you gotta kind of be a super duper expert or water nerd to know how to manage. And the fact is it's not that. We have used high technology to make it as easy as possible. And we really want to kind of emphasize that with Tom's experience today. We're going to focus on station programming, which in other cases is very, very difficult, right? In other systems, it takes an expert to do that. But once you're using OptiFlow, it's actually very, very easy. But we got to get there first. We're going to go through some layers to get to that conversation. That's how we're going to finish up. First, I'm going to toss this to Tom, and we're going to set up a story with you. We're going to talk about a site that he manages that used to use a different product and how we got to OptiFlow. Tom, can you tell us the crux of that story?
Well, we inherited a project and we need to start doing maintenance on. Bunch of existing controllers on a looped main line. So that was a challenge. 7 different controllers, 2 points of connection on opposite ends of the property. And that became, managing the hydraulics became very, very challenging. A lot of paperwork. We installed the WeatherTRAK Pro, and we're using that by having different layers, different windows. So I had an idea of what the hydraulics were and what we would be running. And, but we were guessing. There was no flow no flow meter, nothing like that. So we're just making best guesses.
Sorry to interrupt. With the Pro 3, you were using all 8 programs available on those controllers to manually manage the water window and the water usage on that, right? So you were starting
around campus. Yeah. So around campus going, okay, we got, controller A, we got, A through G, and they all have their start. We had to manage those water windows and going, okay, this needs to run then, but we can't have too much draw at any one time. And so we're pretty much guessing, and that was an improvement. But then,
what was the improvement that you got with the Pro 3s? Can you just take that step for me?
Oh, I could look at it using WeatherTRAK.net and take paper to the cloud and actually see it and go through it, full reports, and just cross-reference, have something that's tangible to look at.
So the cloud-based interface and visibility helped you.
Absolutely.
Trying to walk you into, do you use WeatherTRAK mobile with that? Is that part of the experience?
Yes, all the above. Yes. I don't want to jump ahead, but OptiFlow and the flow having the flow meters actually having something concrete, real data, that was the game changer.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to jump out of this real fast and just give you some high level OptiFlow for your reference for you watchers out there. This is a slide you'll see from me in many different formats. I have a friend who is an irrigation artist. Shout out to Lance Elliott, who does all of my awesome art. He did this picture that just speaks very loudly to me about OptiFlow. To Tom's point, the site that he is managing out there has one big fat main line and many controllers and multiple points of connection that feed that main line. This is what we on the water nerd side call a complex irrigation system, right? We get away from a single point of connection and single controller setup, and we get into an irrigation system that kind of is very dynamic and has lots of moving parts to it. With the Pro 3s, flow management on a simple system is easy. We do have layers of complexity that we can manage, but this OptiFlow system, just kidding. That's the key we're looking for. Thanks for the behind the scenes help, Janine Jackson. So with this type of system, right, we have one point of connection and one big main line and multiple controllers that are pulling off of it. And OptiFlow is exactly designed to do an advanced setup like this. This isn't exactly what Tom described. I'm going to jump back to Tom and talk about his experience and the hardware of his system. But you said, what, 8 controllers, 2 points of connection, 1 main line? Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. So what we had to do is come in. We needed to install some flow meters. Went with the Flow 3, I believe, and some Flow Link to add. It was also a conventional wire system that we inherited. Wasn't 2-wire, so we had Flow Link was able to install the flow meter and then piggyback that onto a station that was close by. Now I've got flow data.
Okay, so let me take back over. That's a perfect transition. So once we finish up the advanced configuration, we wanted to get into exactly what Tom was just talking about, the actual process involved. Again, this with other competitive product is very complex. Other irrigation systems use a lot of field hardware to accomplish what WeatherTRAK does with the cloud-based software, right? So from the highest level, Tom talked about replacing the controllers first and foremost. In Tom's case, we went from the old system to Pro 3 to OptiFlow. We're going to just pretend for now that he just jumped right to OptiFlow. So you would just replace the existing irrigation controllers with an OptiFlow XR in this scenario. Nice to note that it can work in many different applications, in any application that we find in the field, right? So Tom, maybe you can speak to the fact that when you find an irrigation system, it might be a wall mount, it might be a pedestal mount. That pedestal might look like 18 different things, and WeatherTRAK makes it fairly easy to retrofit into those scenarios. Does that sound right?
Oh, we had all the above.
Okay.
We had wall mounts, pedestals, and we were able to go in there, and yeah, there was a solution for each instance.
So did you use any of the chassis mount or controllers that we use the existing controller, take out the guts and put the new ones in?
No, I put in all new chassis.
Okay.
It was going to be a turnkey operation, wanted to have everything to be new. Well, after so many years, the existing controllers, the pad had a really nice tilt to it. It was Leaning Tower of Pisa appearance. Yeah. So wanted the end product to look correct. So yeah, it was nice. It
Awesome.
looks good.
That is great. So here we go, back to the conversation. Once we get
I prefer the one on the left.
You
It's I'm 6'2", and looking down at that screen is a lot easier than looking straight ahead at the wall mount. It's
the
this
slope
one
top.
yeah, the slope top. That's a nice fit. I love seeing that on the job.
What you're right there is behind the scenes called the Big Barbecue. This is a 96 station conventional wire controller all in one cabinet, right?
Yep.
Usually, if you are 6 station on a wall mount, we've got the side by side, because fitting all of those wires into a controller is brutal. But we make the big cabinet for those field users. I agree. I like the top mount. But long story short, whatever existing configuration you have, we have the right to replace it. And the first step is to get OptiFlow controllers in place. We put the flow sensors. Sounds like you used Flow 3, Tom. Can you talk a little bit about the process of choosing and what went into that?
I've used it before on other projects. It's all in one. It's your flow meter and your master valve all in one. Super easy install. I don't know what else to say about it.
That's perfect, right? The flow sensor master valve, ease of installation, key selling point for the Flow 3, right? As other flow sensors.
And the fact that it's got the the switch on there, you can go from auto, manual, and off. It's very easy to read, very easy to use. There's no guessing on which way to turn the toggle for it to be open or closed. It tells you right there on the top of it.
I love that. I love easy to maintain, both with switch as well as the meter on top. Like reading of usage is key to have. Watching those wheels spin is awesome for troubleshooting. What I like about it is the ease of installation, right? Other flow sensor master valve setups are notorious for being very kind of scientific in their installation. You need straight pipe, X and Y, and before and after, and all of that kind of stuff. And the Flow 3 makes it super easy. It eliminates all of those installation prerequisites, right? It makes it easy to install and reliable to use, and works right out of the gate.
Yep.
If I can nerd out for 1 second, I knew that we were going to talk about Pro 3s, but I had to give a plug to the new Flow HDs. This is what I love because I'm a nerd like that. But the ultrasonic flow sensors, or Flow HD, available in both iron and plastic, are a huge advantage because they monitor flow right down to the very limits of flow. On a 2-inch line, we can measure down to a gallon a minute, which is not the case with the Pro 3, right? We're accurate down to 6 gallons a minute with the Pro 3 at that size, and we're down below a gallon a minute. So the new wave, the cool nerdy new thing, is ultrasonic flow sensors. I actually saw a test this week that the ultrasonic manufacturer measured to 6 gallons a minute on a 12-inch line. So it is a ridiculous advantage.
Sweet.
All right, but that brings us to what you talked about before. Oh, I had a slide for that, and I didn't even bring it up. That was the slide for our low resolution advantage. What I want to talk about is adding flow or retrofitting flow onto an existing site, right? This is not something that is typically done, right? It's not typically in the design. Flow monitoring is something that is kind of newer, and in the day they didn't think of this. Can you talk about A, the process of adding flow, and B, how FlowLink played into that?
Well, I like being able to know what actual flow is on my site. Lets me know, other than just a runtime, that I have data saying I had water moving through the pipes. This was a conventional wire system. FlowLink allowed us to install flow meters and get that information back which allows us to do our job better. 2-wire, super easy. That would just be easier, but we didn't have that option. So WeatherTRAK had the option to put in to be able to use FlowLink out in the field. Did not have to put in all new wires. That wasn't even possible. Having FlowLink allowed us to put in flow monitoring.
Right. So with 2-wire, you said it would be easy because we could just, usually that 2-wire path follows the pipe and you can just add a decoder or any sort of device along the 2-wire path and just boom, easy as pie. It gets more difficult with the conventional wire system because you have to have a designated wire that comes from the controller. And that really is oftentimes the obstacle in installing flow and master valve. Not only do you need a designated wire, but with a flow sensor, you're supposed to use a very specific wire. And when you start adding that in, it becomes so expensive. Parking lots, adding new wire, like it just project becomes more expensive than the value. And so it comes cost prohibitive. But with FlowLink that you're seeing here, we can capture, we use this guy right here, the CT, we install that at the controller. And then out in the field, we find the nearest valve. Let me show you. Come on. We find the nearest valve. There we go. And we take the 2 wires from that nearest valve, right? And we use those 2 wires that are already running back to the controller to run the FlowLink. And by adding the FlowLink, we add the capability of the controller to listen to a master valve, a flow sensor, and restore operation to that valve. As you see here, right? We take those 2 wires off of the controller. In this case, they went under a street. We stole the 2 wires from this valve. All we have to do is trench from the valve that's closest to your point of connection, right where we want to install that flow sensor, and back to the field valve that we stole that wire from. So we steal these, instead of trenching all the way back to the controller, the trench is greatly minimized. And it's by the foot, right? We charge by the foot for a trench. So the cost to benefit ratio depends on the distance and the obstacles in the trench that has to be dug. But in this case, you used FlowLink to great acclaim, right? We used that FlowLink to make it easy to see and manage those systems, or to see and manage the flow from those points of connection. Does that sound right?
That's it.
Okay. And did you use flow on both the flows, or did you use FlowLink on both of the flow sensors? Did you need it in both?
Yeah, we had to. Yeah, we had to upgrade 2 of our Pro 3s to the OptiFlow XR, and we needed 2 new flow. We needed 2 flow meters and 2 FlowLinks and 2 new controllers. All the other controllers, all we had to do was plug in the update key, paid for the key, boom. Didn't have to do anything else. It was super easy.
That is a perfect transition to the Q&A that we have on the board here. So Larry asks, if you have a new Pro 3 motherboard, can you just install the OptiFlow faceplate and onto a new 24 station motherboard? Let's give the 2 perspectives. First, I want to hear from you. What would you say?
Just yes, it's that simple.
Just yes, it's that simple. So from the super nerd WeatherTRAK side, it is that simple. It is the same board. But with every Pro 3 to OptiFlow upgrade kit, you'll notice that we also send a board along with, and we ask you to replace the board because what that does is it gives you new stuff all the way down to the ground. The OptiFlow carries a 10-year field warranty. And so we ask you to actually replace that backboard, even though it's exactly the same board. We ask you to replace it to make sure that we are protected on that 10-year warranty. You're getting the latest, greatest. We don't inherit any sort of inefficiencies. So to two sides of the looking glass, right? What the field does and what the manufacturer says are not always exactly the same thing. I like you to hear both sides. Larry, I hope that answers your question, right? It is easy to upgrade to OptiFlow. Before we jump, Tom, I definitely want to hear about upgrading the difference in upgrading the managers from upgrading the members, right? The ones that listen to the flow sensors, you said had a different process than the ones that don't. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, we only had to upgrade one controller to everything. All the other controllers, it was just, you know, that little USB update key that sticks in the back. Pulled that out, plugged it in. I think we had some things to do on the you know, communication, pushing some buttons, and now we had members. It was that was super simple. True definition of plug and play.
So I should have had a slide and I don't, but anytime you have a member controller, which is one that does not listen to a flow sensor, it can be a Pro 3 upgraded with a key. To Tom's point, all we got to do is plug that key in and upload the software through the panel, and that will run the OptiFlow firmware and be able to be a part of the network. However, if you have what we call a manager, which is the controller that listens to the flow sensor, it relays all of that flow data up to the cloud. It does have beefed up computers inside and beefed up communication inside. And so it's important that any manager, again, the ones that listen to the flow sensors, have to be OptiFlow XR controllers, unless it's a one-to-one or it's a member. Okay. Awesome. Let's see. We've got no questions. We will just jump right back in. Do we have anything else on FlowLink that we want to talk about?
No, that was easy.
Okay, so we upgrade the managers to OptiFlow XRs. We already have pre-existing Pro 3s, so all of the members just get plug and play keys and are added to the OptiFlow network. We add flow sensors onto the system that wasn't originally designed to have flow. By using the FlowLink, we made it easy, limited the trenching and the time that it took to install. Now, I don't even know why I started sharing, because this is your segment, right? This is where we want to talk about the advantage of OptiFlow. Once we are moving in that direction, can you tell me what goes into, once all of the hardware is in place, can you walk me through getting the system running on OptiFlow and the benefit of it?
Well, most of the work had already been done because we've been running with the Pro 3s, and we'd already been running automated by WeatherTRAK. So most of the data for all of the stations was already there. Did not have to reinstall it, did not have to redo that. It was, I don't know if it was in the cloud and just re-downloaded, but it was there. Just had a couple of more things to do.
Anything that's already programmed in a Pro 3 carries over. So all of your station data, all of your flow sensor and master valve data all carries over, but there is still something, there's still some programming that has to happen. Can you talk about that?
Then we had to start configuring, going in and defining the system, getting nerdy, going, this is our point of connection, the size of the water meter. Is it a looped? What size main line we were having, giving the controller new information so it could do its job.
And that is what we have here. That is the programming that happens on your WeatherTRAK.net. We go to the OptiFlow page. Once you have OptiFlow permission assigned to your account, you should have this little OptiFlow tab. Remember, it takes OptiFlow permission to get that done. And then under the OptiFlow tab, you'll have the configure, the optimize, and the unlock page, right? This is what OptiFlow looks like. And this is the difference between a Pro 3 and an OptiFlow. So when Tom is talking about the additional, so all of this, the station carried over, what he did was he went in and built what we call the hydraulic tree, literally the water feed structure or the mainline structure of the system. And so he went into this, and you can edit each level. So here we have, just kidding, close this. We can go in and look at the main line that's built. We can edit that main line. We have some tools to help you decide on what the capacity should be based on your current hardware. What type and size of pipe are you running on your system, right? What flow sensors and master valves do you have on your system? We add those points of connection in there. So this is, even if everything's already programmed, this is the step that has to take place.
Yes.
Can you talk about the process a little bit, Tom? Is that something that you found difficult to do?
It wasn't difficult. It was pretty intuitive, fill in the blank sort of thing. Is goes step 1 to step 4 and finish the steps. And then you got to understand, for us on our project, we were working off of city water as our point of connection. We didn't have any, wasn't a well. We didn't have a pump or anything. We changed the numbers. We took it down. We wanted to tighten up. Instead of saying we had 100 gallons available, we took it down to 85, as long as it worked through the heat of the summer, and it did. Our water windows, we never had overlap where we're getting any warning messages on the feedback under optimize. So
Right,
it was,
that's where we're going next. I hate to interrupt, but we're going from the configure page to the optimize page.
Oh yes.
So the configure page is where we put in all of the data. The optimize page is where we see it all in action, right? And that's really the advantage. Got a sad sort of display here, not a ton of irrigation happening. So I'm gonna use a friend of Ed's here to show us what they're doing. I've been given permission to use this at any time that I want, but we'll look at the Monday Night Football view of OptiFlow. I'll go to the optimize page for AT&T Stadium, just to show you kind of how it all works and the advantage that Tom is talking about. Tom is talking about not having to go and figure out the controller A, program A start time, program B start time, and manually figure out exactly how to keep his mainline running at capacity, right? Without overtaxing the system. And OptiFlow does that in a very unique way. We program in the number of gallons that we are allowed to use. And you can see here that OptiFlow, the system that we're looking at here is, Ed, you can correct me if I'm wrong off the hip. I say 7 points of connection on 6 controllers. And so we've got 6 managers and 10 controllers on the network, roughly. And you can see here that across that huge main line that spans the entire property and all of the different parking lots, we set a 600 gallon per minute limit, and all 10 of those controllers we set to the same start time and the same water window, and we just let it go, right? We don't have to manually reconfigure every time. We can go in here and the system will optimize for you, right? It'll keep you running at that constant gallons per minute that we have determined. So Tom talked about how we go from 100 to 85 so we don't overtax. What I want to talk about, and what Angel's question is, perfect question, Angel, leads us right into, I wanted to share this. I didn't want to stop sharing. I actually just wanted to share this guy, right? When we talk about the station scheduling, once we have that OptiFlow schedule, Angel asks, what does it look like to set up a seating program? Can you talk about how we manage our station programs with OptiFlow?
Okay, so you go user no ET for a seeding germination program. That would only be for your grass turf areas. Everything else can stay automated by WeatherTRAK on auto, and it'll take information from the cloud and schedule irrigation as necessary for beds and trees. You're just trying to get the seed going. and then you can save it in your configurations for next year because you're going to probably use it again.
Right. So, sorry to interrupt, but when we're talking about station programming, we're talking about station mode. We've got 4 different options for station mode. Automated by WeatherTRAK is the ET-based, the depletion-based model that we are famous for. But you can put in user-defined programs as well, user with ET or user no ET. We've got some episodes highlighted there if you want to learn some more details. But here is the important part. Tom, can you tell me how much time and effort went into reprogramming the OptiFlow if you want to change your station settings?
It's really quick. I've already set up with user no ET as my default. So I have like oh my gosh, I need to switch back to it because something happened. So I've always got that in the bank. And then you have it set up for auto. Save that in your used configurations. You've got all your historical, just pick out any date on the calendar and it'll show you how you had it set up for that day.
Yeah, I'll show you that real fast.
We have several properties that want ryegrass overseed for our wintertime down here in Houston, Texas. And so we know that we're going to be germinating. We just have a germination program saved in there that we just click, and it's went on vacation a couple of weeks ago, and that's when we're going down with seed, and it was just to talk with the guys, pull up the germination program, run it while I'm gone, and came back and said we're going to switch it back to auto, and I said great, looks great.
So all of that is to say WeatherTRAK has great tools for remembering programs and helping you minimize the time that it takes to get your station programming in place. But what I want to emphasize is that is totally separate of the OptiFlow. Once you've built that hydraulic tree, changing station modes, unlike the others, right? Unlike some of our competitors, changing station modes or how stations are generating their programs isn't involved in the OptiFlow at all. We've set that hydraulic tree. I can switch a station from auto mode to user mode and back again without ever touching the OptiFlow program because that hydraulic tree is already built. You don't have to rebuild the wheel every time that you make a program change. They're 2 totally different concepts in WeatherTRAK.
Now, we just had that on site where we did a new installation. And so I did not want to run the irrigation from the end of the summer into fall on this new planting based off of, ET or automated, because it wasn't established landscaping. It was established in landscaping. I wanted to establish, I wanted to determine what those run times were going to be. So it was just changing from auto to user no ET and set up a schedule, and it's all set within OptiFlow. All the rest of the campus is running automated by WeatherTRAK, and the new installation was running user no ET. And pretty soon we'll be, transitioning it over to auto.
Right. So in OptiFlow, as boring as it sounds, right, you don't worry about it. When you're managing your station programming, once the OptiFlow is set up, that lives on the station programming. We switch the station mode from auto to user or off or whatever changes you want to make. And the OptiFlow doesn't care how you generate the schedule or run the schedule as long as it fits onto the hydraulic tree. The one thing that I would give you heads up about is if you change a station program, it is often the program that is tied to the OptiFlow hydraulic tree. So you're saying station A pulls its water from this section of pipe. If you change this to station H and station H hasn't been assigned, that's when it creates, the only time it creates an OptiFlow issue is when you change the program.
Well, it will let you know if you try to do something that you shouldn't do. It goes, no.
No, wait a minute. Absolutely. And then I did want to take a second. I know we're over on time, but I did want to take a second. Tom did a great job explaining our configurations tool. So at the top of the program page, we have this great configurations tool. It will be the subject of a future episode. We'll do a whole episode on this, but what Tom's talking about is in the cloud, we save all of your configurations. You can go in and save them yourself. So if you have like a spring startup or whatever it is, an overseed project, you can go in. The first time you set up that overseed project, you have to go and define each station's runtime and make sure it's exactly the way that you want it. But from WeatherTRAK, you save that configuration, call it your overseeding program, and then the next time that you want it, all you have to do is select it, right? And you don't have to repeat the building of the wheel. We go back and we say, I want my overseeding project. We view the settings. It will bring up the settings as of that date and time, put them on the program page for you to kind of sign off on. And when you hit save and send, it will just adopt to the controller. So awesome feature set. Another thing that Tom mentioned is not only do we have the ability to save our own things, but WeatherTRAK actually stores them behind the scenes time. So you can actually go in with this tool and choose the time and date. Yeah. So if you wanted to look at last on the 1st, we'd go to October 1st at 10 a.m. And again, if I view the settings as of, will tell you exactly what were on the program page, and you can restore them. So managing the OptiFlow, the station settings on the OptiFlow is a no-brainer, super easy, but worth talking about, right? Because the competitors don't do that. The competitors, you do have to rebuild the wheel to make any such changes. Tom, can you tell me, did I miss anything?
No, it was improved hydraulics, better watering, because we set the limit on the main line and said, take advantage of X. And so it did. It's going to go out, and after you've done learn flow, very important, is that wasn't something we had before, was how much flow, what the usage was for each zone. Now it's going and picking on valve 1, 3, 5, whatever, and cramming them into that window and doing the irrigation. We had shortened water window times, and better hydraulics, better coverage on the zones that were being operated than we were before.
So you're able to provide better management with less work. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that when technology makes it easier, right? Okay, Tom, we are over on time, but I have to ask you the standard question all first-time special guests get. What does WeatherTRAK save you?
I know I wanted to say, of course, it saves me time, but I think it really provides me peace of mind. I know that it's working. It's doing what it's supposed to do. I'm able to make reports and prepare those and give those to the clients. I can show them their water usage. We had 3 weeks of rain in the middle of the summer. Their concern was, well, rewatering, were you turning off the water? I send them the report and show them, oh, we had 3 weeks of no irrigation, no water usage. And you could have, this is what you were using the week before. It just, it's nice to use.
I love that. I love that using the data paid off, right? You can say, I didn't turn off the system, but we didn't water because of the system that you bought, right?
Right.
Or if I did have to turn it off, here is the tools that I used. I didn't have to make a special trip out to do that. All good things. That is great perspective. All right, I'm going to jump last time to my PowerPoint. We're going to give a plug for next week. Next week is big. We have ready, go. We have the beginning of our, we're always here to support. That we have the beginning of our dropped series. So next week we start to change for the rest of the year the Smart Water Wednesdays from the interview format that you're seeing to a game show format where I have great water managers who have been special guests on the show. come on and compete at WeatherTRAK trivia for amazing WeatherTRAK swag. So I was going to talk about this, but we're over on time. You get a different piece of swag for every round that you win. So the champions will take home a WeatherTRAK sweatshirt and advance to the championship round. And they'll get a whole separate set of awesome WeatherTRAK prizes for both the round robin and the championship. The champion of the whole tournament wins a customized Yeti cooler. So there is tons of fun stuff. So tune in next week when we will see some great water managers from California. Each one of these guys heads up a water management division internal in their company. So the director of water management, you'll see Danny Smith, Andrew Chase, Max Moreno, and Chad Sutton joining and playing Dropped next week. So join us next week. The fun will continue. Tom, in the meantime, I want to thank you so much for making time for us this morning. I know we ran long. I promised we would be off a while ago. Thank you, listeners, for staying. Thank you, Tom, for making time. You want to say anything before we close it up? You want to give a shout out to anybody?
Oh, we're all good. Enjoy the weather.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the weather, and we will talk next week.